Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I am washing this 2016 BMW 328i X-Drive wagon, or touring for the Europeans who may be watching. This is a car I've washed several times, and so it is pretty well protected in terms of the paint. I wanted to make a quick video just about basically if you've just gotten your car ceramic coated, and you just want to basically keep it protected, keep it clean. This is a way of cleaning your car that is fairly quick but very detailed, and will definitely cause the least amount of scratches to the paint. This is a car that is not actually ceramic coated, but it's waxed, and it's got a few layers of PNS paint protectant on it. So without further ado, let's get into it. And of course, I was starting with the wheels. So the first step of any process that I really do with detailing or washing, whatever you want to call it, is always a rinse. So I'll rinse it down as well as possible, either the wheels or any body panels that I'm doing. After that, I do the foaming. So in this case, it's PNS Brake Buster, which is a really good wheel cleaner. If you have really dirty wheels, then you might need to use something else, something a little bit more robust. You might need to use a combination of products, but typically PNS is what I use for the wheels, and oftentimes I'll mix it with some soap just to get it a little more sudsy, and I'll also put a splash of it in a bucket along with a bit of soap. Then comes the tires. I like to just hit them with a brush and just go all the way around. Make sure they're nice and clean. You may have to do that a few times if you've got really dirty tires. This is more geared towards cars that have been regularly washed, especially cars that are ceramic coated or just professionally detailed, have been professionally detailed recently. The third step is I like to get into the barrels of the wheels, clean them up with something. I use one of these easy detail brushes, just a small one. So the final step of the process is basically, at least the final step of the washing process, is just hitting the face of the wheel with just a cloth of some sort of microfiber wash mitt. The final step is going to be the rinse, the final rinse, and this is where I get all of the dirt that I've just loosened up off of the wheels. And yeah, then you're done with the wheel one, and then you can go on and rinse and repeat, quite literally, and do all four wheels. So once you've completed the wheels, the next step is to rinse the car. I like to take extra care in this step to make sure I get every square inch, just because if you've just had your car ceramic coated, you're probably going to want to keep it as nice as possible for as long as possible, and so you're going to want to reduce the amount of swirls that you're creating, because there is, of course, some inherent damage being caused to the paint when you wash your car, and don't be scared of the word damage. It could be very, very minor, and what we're trying to do here is basically make that quote-unquote damage as minor as possible. So I like to give the car a really good rinse, so I'm dragging the least amount of dirt across the paint when I go in for the third step of washing, which is using a wash mitt to wash the car, to sort of the quintessential sponge and bucket method, although here we'll be using two buckets, again, to reduce the amount of swirls that we're creating on the paint. After you've rinsed the car or truck or whatever you're washing, the next step is to foam it. There are plenty of foam cannons on the market. I use the MTM PF 22.2. I'm sure plenty of the cheaper ones are fine as well. Once the car has been foamed, I'll usually let it sit for about 30 seconds before I start in on the actual washing. And here you're going to want to prepare two buckets, one with soap and water, basically filled to the brim. And you're going to want to make sure you have dirt guards at the bottom of all of your buckets for the wheels and the wash and rinse buckets. And then you're going to want to prepare a second bucket that's just rinse water, again with a grit guard on the bottom. And basically you'll go back and forth between wash bucket, washing down the car, rinse bucket, wash bucket, washing down the car, rinse bucket, and repeat. Once you're done washing the car, you're going to want to rinse it down. I take a lot of care and a lot of time in this step of the process just to try to get as much soap from the car as you can. This will come back to bite you if you don't do it right later in the process, because when you go to dry the car, there'll be, spots of soap, and it can cause a lot of swirls, especially if it's mixing with drying aid of any sort that you're using. Once the washing and rinsing steps are complete, obviously you're going to want to dry the car. It's best if you have an electric or gas, depending on what you prefer to use. Leaf blower, just to essentially get all of the beads of water off, especially if your car is ceramic coated, which is sort of where I'm aiming this video. If you are using a leaf blower, the process is pretty simple. The goal is essentially to get the most amount of water off of the car, and as you can see, I didn't do quite a good enough job with rinsing, so you see some suds here and there, which is not good. But essentially what you're going to want to do is try to get the car basically dry and just have sort of little specks of water. It's better not to get it completely dry, just because when you come around to actually drying the car with a towel, it's a little easier to have some lubrication with the water to add to your drying aid. Typically when you're drying the car, especially if you're using a drying aid, you're going to want to have a plush microfiber towel here to absorb most of the water, and you're going to want to apply the drying aid, whatever you're using, to that cloth directly, and then you want to dry the surface initially with that, and then you're going to want to sort of buff it off with this. Typically it's not really good to do circular motions on the paint, so it's really more just for removing the excess paint protectant. Don't be buffing the car like crazy, and that's part of the reason I don't particularly like using wax, although I did wax this car recently. However, it is definitely in need of some paint correction. It's important during the drying process that you really get in between the door jambs here. You want to clean up all of this water, or when you go down the road, it will all come out and ruin the freshly washed paint. Additionally, you'll want to fold in the mirrors and make sure you get all the water, and it will probably keep dripping for a while. Even if you have used a leaf blower, it's likely that you will have to just deal with the water a little bit, and it's best not to drive the car right after you dried it anyways, especially if you're using a paint protectant of any sort, because oftentimes they'll remain tacky for a little while and you will get particles and whatnot stuck in the paint. But here's the hood. I've finished drying it. This car is not in perfect shape. It's got some blemishes, and those certainly were not removed by this process. You can see it's got paint chips and whatnot, but I certainly think that it helps to keep the car in better shape if you regularly wash and dry it properly. But that's essentially the finished product. That's what you'll be looking for. It's just a nice shine. If you've made it this far in the video, well, thank you. And I also just wanted to include a few additional sort of tips and tricks just for general washing procedures. I would highly recommend, if you can afford it, to use one of these nozzles. Additionally, I would highly recommend that when you go to wash the car, in any scenario, you point the pressure washer down and then turn it on, and then point at the car. Oftentimes what can happen is, if you haven't fully attached the nozzle, it can fly off of the pressure washer and hit the car and dent it and do some serious damage, especially if you're drying or if you're washing other people's cars. That's really not a good thing. So obviously if you use a heavier and more soft nozzle than this, it will really improve your chances of not having that happen. I would also recommend that you use quick disconnects for all of the hoses and the gun. Obviously, if you get this gun, which I think is made by Mosmatic, and this wand, it's all got quick disconnects, and that will really help you break the whole setup down. This isn't really a tip, this is more sort of the process, part of the process. I would highly recommend that you wash the windows at the end with some kind of a good glass cleaner. The final tip is just basically use high quality products. If you're really sort of on a budget, or you don't really care enough to spend a lot of money, well, this probably isn't the right video or process for you. I personally love detailing, and I'm fortunate enough to, well, sort of have money to spare on all of these products. I think it's all very much worth it, and when you see the results of using really high quality products and using all of these methods, despite how long they take, I think you'll begin to realize the value and worth in doing it all right. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and learned a thing or two about washing a car properly. Anyways, that's it for this video.